anytime a song gets written, it's just a miracle.
It hits you when you're falling in love or falling out of love.
He let us spend a night inside the Great Pyramid. They locked us in.
Oh my God, man, this sounds pretty damn good.
I'm Keith Stegall, and welcome to High Dollar Hill. My guest today, he's a game changer, a facilitator of creative greatness, over 100 number one singles, Grammys. I'm honored to have him with us today, Mr. Tony Brown. Tony, welcome to High Dollar Hill.
Good to be High Dollar Hill. I wondered where you lived, and you made so much money making records, I figured it'd be a nice place, and I was right.
You know, it's a barn.
That's a nice barn. If you're going to have a barn like this.
So where are you from? Where do you hail from?
North Carolina. My dad was an evangelist, so I was raised in the church. I wasn't allowed to listen to any other music but religious music. In fact, after I made it as a producer, I'd be interviewed, and they'd say, "What's the first record you ever bought?" I'd say, "George Beverly Shea,
Wow.
How Great Thou Art." But I never got to listen to pop music till I left home. Till I was like 19. I discovered Stevie Wonder and Elton John, Jackson Brown, and I was going, why did my dad not let me listen to this? It's not really that sinful, I don't think.
Well, I'm curious as to when the piano became a part of your universe. When did you start playing?
13. I was my dad played piano, and my two brothers and myself and my sister sang. One night at church, after church, I was sitting at the piano playing, and a lady in church came up and said, "Play that again." And I did. She said, "I'm gonna play you something." She played me something real simple in the key of C. She said,
Yeah.
"Can you play that?" And I played that. She says, "You have an ear. You should learn to play piano." So I learned to play a song for the family at the next revival.
Wow.
And I played, and the crowd went wild, and I thought, I need to learn to play two songs. So I got the bug, you know. And I never read music, and every gig I ever had, I didn't really like. Play Emmylou Harris, Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
It was such simple music, I didn't have to play. If I had played with Michael Jackson or Celine Dion, I'd have to read music. But I never learned to read music, and it never really kept me from getting good gigs. The thing it did keep me from doing was becoming a great session player. So,
You were a pretty good session player.
no, I played on sessions, but not on not like David Briggs or someone like that. You know, the session players you and I would hire, they got to be able to turn on a dime. I mean, I remember playing with Emmylou Harris, and we were doing "Ain't Living Long Like This." And I had never been in a band where they gave people solos. Like, take it.
Yeah.
I never in church you don't do that. So Ricky played a fiddle solo. He was 19 and just scorching. And Amy said, "Take it, Tony." And it was in the key of B. And I went, "Oh, no. Well, what am I going to do?" So what a piano player does when you cheat is you get an octave and a fifth, and you bang like Little Richard.
Yeah.
A couple of Jerry Lewis things, kick the stool over, the crowd goes wild. With Emmylou, that didn't work because it's all about integrity, not about show business.
Oh, man.
I learned a lot. You know, playing with Elvis was easy because, God, what a great band. 19-piece horn section.
And how
20
old?
backup singers.
How old were you?
I was 37. But, you know, you can hide in that band. You can just hide. And I had two keyboard players. Me, I was on the acoustic piano, and David Briggs was on the electric piano. But playing with Elvis was easy. To me, that gig was more thrilling for me to be worthy of playing in that band as opposed to just playing with Elvis.
And how did that happen? How did you end up in the band?
Well, I was playing with the Oak Ridge Boys, and J.D. Sumner fired Donnie Sumner, his nephew, from the Stamps Quartet, and Elvis loved Donnie's singing. So Elvis called Donnie and said, "Get a couple guys and a piano player, and I'll hire you to play gospel songs around the house when I'm not touring." So Donnie called me and said, "You want the gig?" I said, "Absolutely, man." So I took that gig, and that's all we did was play gospel songs around Palm Springs and Beverly Hills and Graceland. Wow. And then one day they put us on tour to open the show. I would go sit behind Glenn D. Hardin during the Elvis show and watch him play. I was going, God, I could do this gig. It's so easy. It's basically, James Burton had the whole show.
Yeah.
And Glenn, he just bang, you know. So when Glenn D left to go with Emmylou Harris, I said, "Man, put my name in the hat. I can do this gig." He said, "You can." So I got the gig.
That's amazing.
No rehearsal. Road manager said, "Okay, Tony, Space Odyssey first, CC Rider, then Elvis will do this, Teddy Bear. James has the rest of the show, and then you got I Can't Help Falling in Love. Then we're out." He said, "Can you handle that and not screw it up?" I said, "Yeah." And the first night Elvis went like this. trying to play triplets when you're hyperventilating? Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. And I said, that's not right. I went, okay, do it again. And then people said, weren't you embarrassed? I said, no, because when you were on stage with 19-piece horn section, 20 backup singers, and 10-piece band and Elvis, nobody even knows who the piano player's name is. They said, that dude on the piano. You're just a dude.
That pretty much says you're going to make a living in the music industry.
Yeah, man, the thing about the music industry, and I think you can probably attest to this, once you've been in it, you're stuck in it, man. You just can't get enough of it, because you get to dress like you want to dress. You get to have style.
Yeah.
Whereas in any other business, like if you're working for a bank or something, you got to wear a suit. You got to be like everybody else. But when you're in the music industry, you can be yourself. Somebody said fashion is for people who don't have style. So I've always tried to, I'm 78, and I try to look like I'm 48
and
the rest of my life. Because I just feel like a musician. Even though I've been an executive, I was president of MCA for 5 years, and I still just was myself.
Yeah.
Because I could be. They didn't expect me to wear a suit and tie. And that's what the music business is about. You get to sort of be creative in every way,
Well, yeah, it's the freedom to do and be what you are. And
if you're A&R like I was, you get to really turn people on to things that you like as opposed to what everybody else likes. You can, I always say, to be in the music industry, you have to be realistic, but to enjoy it, you have to be idealistic, because you have to say, they're going to love this.
Yeah.
And if they don't love it, then the label will come down on you like, man, you got to get your shit together, But if they don't love it, your thought is, well, they're just stupid because I'm smarter than they are.
I'm trying to think. I first met you, I think you were over 3 flights.
For RCA, my first job as a pop A&R guy.
And that was that on the West Coast?
Yeah, West Coast. Jerry Bradley hired me after the Outlaws album, first country platinum album. They gave Jerry Bradley a pop label thinking there was something going on in Nashville. So David Briggs said, they're trying to shove a couple New York guys down Jerry's throat to be the A&R guy for his label.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want that. He wants one of his guys here. So I'll tell him to hire you, and he will. And that's what happened. I got hired. I moved to LA for 2 years. That's just when disco was coming out.
Yeah.
And then punk rock, like the Clash and the B-52s were coming in. Everything I love, like Ronstadt, the Doobie Brothers, were going out of style. So I did not fit in. So they shut the label down in 2 years. And Jerry said, you can stay out there or come back to Nashville. And I said, I'm coming back home. And I came back home and I signed Alabama. I had no idea how big they would be.
That's amazing. So didn't you sign Mac McAnally too to Free
I signed Mac for that label out there, and we closed the day his record came out. But I signed him again later on at MCA.
Oh man,
he was my hero.
Oh, mine too. It's still just such an incredible talent.
Yeah, what a great guitar player, but what a great songwriter he is, and what a great mind.
Yeah.
And I remember "It's a Crazy World" was on Areola Records.
Yep, that's true. That was a German label.
Right, and I just became so infatuated because he's a little mixture of James Taylor, all the things I love about pop music, and then he became like a staple of country music, won the CMA Instrumentalist of the Year for like 10 years in a row.
I think he can still do it. He's just amazing. Let's talk a bit about Emmylou and that relationship. How did that blossom? How did that come to pass?
When Glenn D said he was leaving Elvis, and I said, why would you leave this gig? He said, I've been doing it for 20 years. I said, well, what are you going to do? He said, there's a girl named Emmylou Harris. Warner Brothers just signed her, and I did her record. And she's awesome. I'm going to tour with her for like a year. I can't do both gigs. I thought, wow, how crazy are you? So after I took his job with Elvis to the end, Elvis dies. I go back home. David Briggs got a call. I was plugging songs for David Briggs, and he says, Emmylou's manager just called me and said, Glenn D just quit. Emmylou's going to work with John Denver. So he wants me to come out and audition. He said, I'm not doing it again. I said, I'll do it. He said, Tony Brown said he'll do it. And they said, he's never heard of you. Because Glenn D left Elvis to go with Emmylou, I had bought the first 2 albums, Pieces of the Sky, Elite Hotel. I thought, man, she's awesome. She turned me on to country music. So I was going to go audition I thought, what? I never auditioned. I didn't audition for Elvis. So I thought, what will she ask me to do? So I listened to the records, and have you heard her version of Together Again?
Yeah.
There's a piano solo in the center. It's an F sharp.
Oh.
And it's a cool little lick Glenn D came up with on the F sharp. I learned that.
Okay.
And then Too Far Gone, which is a Billy Sherrill song, had the piano intro, which I found out later after I left Emmylou that Glenn D didn't play on that song. That was Billy Payne from Little Big.
Oh, my gosh.
But I learned that intro, and I learned all the parts in that. Those are the two songs she asked me to do, and those are the two I prepared to play.
Wow.
And she hired me out on the spot because I didn't try to show off. And I played with her. Rodney had just left Emmylou, and Ricky Skaggs replaced her.
Okay.
So I met Ricky Skaggs at the age of 19.
These bands are amazing. These players
Yeah.
are in these bands.
So then Amy got pregnant, and I thought, what am I going to do now? And so Rodney Krause said, he just got a deal with Warner Brothers. He said, I'm going to hire the hot band, be my band. We'll call them the Cherry Bombs. So our first gig, we had a poster that said, Rodney Krause and a hot band, the Cherry Bombs. And it was all the old hot band. And we said, we play all the clubs up and down the West Coast. And we just play for the door. You know, sometimes we wouldn't make anything. Sometimes we'd make a little money.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun. And you look out in the audience, there'd be Ron Sett out there, Billy Gibbons. At that point in my life, being cool was more important than money, you know. Being cool was priceless. So we played, and, you know, and in the Cherry Bombs.
Where did the name come from?
That's just the name Rodney came up with.
Okay.
But in the Cherry Bombs, so when we first started, because Albert Lee was the guitar player, he was our guitar player.
Good Lord.
But sometimes he couldn't play. So Rodney had to get a sub. Amy Gordon said, what about Vince Gill? He's with Pure Prayer League. He can sing and play too. So then Vince became the third guitar player with the Cherry Bombs. I started noticing when Vince was there, we had better harmonies, but Vince plays a lot like Albert.
Yeah.
Richard Bennett plays like
Richard Bennett.
Yeah, he's not an improviser. He's really about chords and
He's
more like Keith Richards kind of thing.
Yeah.
I started noticing the texture each guitar player added to the band. I think that's where I started noticing you make records, you can change one musician and change the whole.
Absolutely. Change the chemistry
vibe of
and
the
the
song.
sound.
Yeah. And I learned a lot working with Rodney. And then also I was never a session player, but with Emmylou and with Rodney, and then Rodney marries Roseanne Cash, they used their bands on the records because that was a big part of their sound, you know. Now that I was producing records, I couldn't use the bands of country artists. They weren't quite good enough.
Yeah.
They could copy what the session players did, but they couldn't create it.
Yeah.
You know, they could copy it. So I learned that session players can create on the spot. You know, say, let's do it one more time. Then Brent Mason will play that lick that makes the record. You go, oh man, that's it right there.
There it is.
And then you take credit for it.
I know. It's like those guys are the guys that build the records.
And all the interviewers say, man, you're a genius. That Brent Mason lick was really cool. You go, well, thank you very much.
Oh, it's so
But
true.
I learned a lot by playing with Rodney and Emmylou about how the band part of their records was a big part of their sound.
Yeah.
Like right now, I think the artists that use their band on their records are Jason Aldean.
Yeah.
Maybe Keith Urban, I don't know.
Well, Zach Brown still uses
Zach Brown's band is killer. I mean, you can't. They're like a jam band. They're like Fish, you know.
Yeah.
My eyes were wide open when I started making records about learning how to cast a band. You know, like Reba likes certain players.
Yeah.
George Strait likes the same players every time.
Yeah.
Certain artists, they want you to push them, so you maybe hire a player. I would fly in like Sklar and Russ Kunkel from LA.
Yeah. Well, but what great players, though.
Yeah, but Jimmy Bowen said, man, if you think you need Dean Parks on the guitar, fly him in, man. It's worth it.
Yeah.
And so Jimmy Bowen gave me the license to feel the freedom of whatever you think you need, kid, it's worth it. You know, whatever it costs to get it.
Yeah, I'm interested about that relationship with Bowen because you guys were killing it. I mean,
Bowen changed my life. Up until him, everybody was making single scale.
Yeah.
And he started paying double scale, and everybody thought they said he's being an LA man. He's an LA kind of guy.
Yeah.
He said, I pay double scale because they deserve it.
Yeah.
And then he started catering food into the sessions. They said, there he goes doing that LA thing again. He said, I did that because at dinner break, a lot of players would go out and have a drink, come back.
Yeah.
It's kind of trash.
Kept them on site.
Kept them on site. Keep my eye on them.
And I still do that if I'm tracking at the castle.
Yeah.
We're catering.
Absolutely. And it's really to keep everybody there.
Yeah.
And if there's always one person might say, you don't mind if I run out, do you? But I don't know. Bowen taught me, man, do what you think you need. If you take care of the music, and the music will take care of you.
Yeah.
And I thought that was always a good quote.
I guess what you guys did was was historical, the way.
Oh yeah, and he everybody thought he and I co-produced in the beginning, and he would never do anything but the tracks, and he would close the mix, but he'd have me do all the overdubs, all the vocal comps, and everybody said, "Man, he's taking advantage of you." I said, "No, he's trusting me."
Yeah.
Because I would do vocals and comps and stuff, and it's no fun, I can tell you that.
No.
But I love doing background vocals. I mean, do a background vocal with the West Side Tower and somebody else. If it doesn't work, bring in somebody else.
Yeah.
Just change it. Just you have the ability to create. That was my feeling of somebody said, "Do you miss playing piano?" I said, "No," because when I would produce, I feel like I'm part of the rhythm section, because when I hire Matt Rollins or John Jarvis to play keyboards, I did it specifically because I know what they can do.
Who was in the section that kind of was the core band for the records you did and Bowen did?
Back in those days, it was David Hungate on bass.
Yeah.
And, Bowen used Matt Benton on drums. I never used Matt. Matt was Jimmy Buffett's drummer.
Okay.
But I would use Eddie Bayers.
Yeah.
And always John Jarvis or Matt Rollins, Steve Nathan on keyboards,
Yeah.
Reggie Young, Brent Mason, Brent Rowland, and on acoustic, Steve Gibson's still, to me, one of the best acoustic players.
I think you still use him on the Strait records.
All my Strait records are the same players. Straight's rhythm sections: Brent Mason, electric; Steve Gibson, acoustic; Mac McNally, acoustic; Paul Franklin, steel; Steve Nathan and Matt Rollins, keyboards;
Yeah.
Glenn Worf, bass; and Aubrey Haney or Stuart Duncan on fiddle. And one time, Matt Rollins lived in L.A., and he couldn't make a session in Key West because his wife was having a baby. So I hired John Jarvis to play to sub for him. And I told George that Matt couldn't make it. His wife was having a baby. He said, "Does he not enjoy playing for my sessions?" I said, "He's having a baby." Now there's a kid in town called Ilya
Tashinsky. Yeah, Ilya.
He's really good.
He is really good. He's Russian.
To me, the most precise player I've ever worked with.
Well, you met him at Siberian Express.
I signed up his band from Russia, Bering Strait. They were playing in a Mexican restaurant in Moscow, and we've signed them, and all the rest of the band has gone by the wayside. But Ilya just turned into like the #1 session player in town.
Yeah, he's good.
And now, a lot of labels won't let you pay double scale. They think that was a vanity thing. It wasn't a vanity. It was just like the players deserved it.
Well, some people, like Mark O'Connor, actually got triple scale.
I know, yeah. I remember I hired a player from L.A. to play on Reba's For My Broken Heart album. Because I couldn't get Dan Huff, so Dan suggested this guy from L.A. He signed triple scale. As long as I could fit it in the budget, it's worth it to me, man.
Yeah.
It was a great player. It's priceless.
What about Diamonds and Dirt?
Yeah. My first gold album, I was at MCA, and Bowen, and by then Bowen had hired me to produce some Steve Wariner with himself, Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah.
So Rodney called me and said, "Won't you do my new record for CBS?" And by then, his first record was produced by Brian Ahern for Warner's.
Yeah.
Then he came to CBS, and I think Booker T. Jones produced him. Then David Malloy produced him.
Yeah.
So he said, "Would you produce my next record?" And I said, "God, are you kidding me? You trust me?" Because Rodney was, to me, was like my mentor.
Yeah.
So I asked Bowen, could I do it? I had to get permission. And Bowen said, "Why would you do that? I know he's your hero, but why would you take a chance of producing someone like him and fail? Everybody else has failed it. And why would you do that, an outside project, and fail?" I said, "Because he's Rodney Crowell." He said, "I'm going to let you do it, just as a lesson." And had 5 #1s, my first gold album, Rodney's only gold album.
Wow.
And after that, it gave me confidence,
Yeah.
Because everybody, all the players on the session went, man, I can't believe how smoothly this is going. Ronnie would have never taken anything by now. This record went really fast.
Yeah.
That's his least favorite record.
No kidding.
Yeah, because he felt like he compromised. You know, he's really like Lucinda Williams and John Prine, that singer-songwriter,
Yeah.
indulgent. The music is about singer-songwriter, not about commerce.
Yeah.
I think that record incorporated his really most accessible songs, because his songs now are not near as accessible as those songs were.
But that's what a good record producer is supposed to do.
Yeah,
That's part of the job.
So I was in heaven when that record went gold. And Reba, when Bowen left and Reba hired me, she hired me because she thought I was trained by Bowen.
Yeah.
She said, I love that Diamonds in Dirt record. Oh, thank you very much. It's all me. All because of me.
Yeah, that's great. So the journey with Steve Earle is fascinating, because I was a label mate with him when he was on Columbia or Epic for a second, and he wore a little bolo tie.
Oh, yeah. And Ron Hamby was the A&R guy, right?
Oh, yeah, that's correct.
Noah Fox.
Another great guy.
He said, I'm sending Jimbo Henson and Steve Earle down to Gulf Shores at William D. Golden's house. Why don't you go with them and write some songs? So I said, sure, man. So this is totally token, right?
Yeah.
So I went with
Yeah.
him. And while we were down there, Steve was writing his next record for CBS. And at that point, you know, his last record had been like a rockabilly album. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He was playing these songs like Guitar Town and My Old Friend the Blues. And I said, man, that's awesome. He said, I got to play this for Ron Hamby when I get back, and he's not going to like them. I said, no, don't play him those songs. Just play him something else. He said, no, I'll play him these. He won't like them. I said, if he doesn't like them, I'll sign you. So we got back, and he called me and said, Hamby hates those songs. So are you serious? You signed me? I said, yeah. So I go to Bowen, and Bowen said, if you can make me understand a word he says, because Steve didn't talk very plain, you know, and he sang. So I go record some demos on those songs. Made Steve pronounce all the words you could understand his pronunciation. And I thought Steve was going to cut my legs off with a switchblade or something. And then Bowen said, okay. Steve had a drug problem. He's a junkie.
Yeah.
Had rotten teeth. They tell Steve's got to get his teeth fixed before he signed him. I said, you're just trying to get me killed, Bowen. So I could tell Steve, I said, Steve, you got to get your teeth fixed, and the label will pay for it. He went, oh, man, great. I've been wanting to do that. I couldn't afford it. So I signed into the label. We do Guitar Town.
Now, Richard Bennett, is he a co-producer?
Co-producer, right.
Yeah.
And you know, we rehearsed that whole album at the Oaks demo studio.
Yeah.
Rehearsed every song, got it all arranged out, and then cut it. It took 10 years for that record to go gold, but to this day, it's really probably one of the best records I ever made. Rolling Stone, I saw about 5 years ago, had the best top 100 records of the 80s. It was like number 69. Took 10 years to go gold, but it's held up all these years, you know. And then we did Exit Zero after that. It went gold. And then we were doing the third album. I went to Memphis to cut Copperhead Road.
Yeah. Oh, what a great song, too.
Yeah, and
what a great
we
record,
cut it
Tony.
at Arden, and we turned it in, and Bowen said, he wasn't going to put it out. He said, Irving likes you and Steve. He likes you. Irving Azoff was running all MCA. So he sends it to Irving. Irving says, I'll take it to the Pop label. So Bowen said, Brown, you're lucky. Irving likes you and Steve. He's taking this record. So Irving calls me. He says, hey, T. Call me T. Hey, T. I love this Steve Earle record, but I'm going to tell Bowen it sucks. Because if he knows I like it, he won't let me have it. I'm going to tell him I'm going to take it just because I like you. And he'll let me have it. I said, okay. He said, but I love it. It's the biggest record Steve ever had. I mean, worldwide, it went gold.
Wow.
To this day, I was thinking, man, I've learned so much about the music business. You just got to roll with it, man. Just go with it.
Yeah.
You know, don't take it personal. Because everybody's taste is, like, I don't get hip hop, and it's the biggest music in the world. I don't get it. And country can encompass so much. Even country encompasses a little hip hop, a little R&B, a little gospel, a little folk. So country's a great genre for me to be in, you know.
Yeah, well, because it's a melting pot.
Yeah,
And
plus I like songs. I like lyrics.
Yeah.
I just love. I say country is the white man's rhythm and blues.
What about Marty Stewart?
Marty Stewart, I'd known Marty since he was 13 because he's been like a little bluegrass star with Lester
Yeah.
Flatt and Earl Scruggs, and always dressed to the tens.
Yeah, yeah.
And I always was into stylish people, like I playing with Elvis and J.D. Sumner, William D. Golden.
Yeah.
So I had noticed Marty all these years, and Marty loves Southern gospel music, so he knew I was. So when I get to MCA, he'd been on CBS, and Ricky Skaggs had just had Highway 40 Blues album. But Ricky cut some great songs. Marty's records, he was trying to do the same thing, but the songs weren't good. So I'm cutting Steve Earle in Memphis on Copperhead Road. Marty pulls up in the parking lot and says, "I'm not leaving until you sign me." I said, "Well, Marty, man, you got to play me something I like. I mean, I love you, man. You're a good guy, but you got to play me something I like because I don't like those records you've been making for CBS." So he played me. He said, "I've been writing with Paul Kennerly, and we've been writing these songs called beat ballads. And and those songs, if you know Paul Kennerly, he was a Buddy Holly fan.
Yeah.
So everything's about the rhythm. He played me Hillbilly Rock. He played me Tempted. Played me a song called Little Things, all that jangly guitar things. And they sounded awesome. I said, I'll sign you." We had 3 gold albums with those records. It made Marty a star.
That is amazing.
And it's all because, I've always been the kind of person, if I like something quickly, I don't question my taste. I like it.
It's instinctive.
But if somebody plays me something that this is really good, like Dwight Yoakam, people have passed on Dwight Yoakam. Sherman Halsey played me Dwight Yoakam. And I said, "I don't get it." He sings through his nose. He said, "Man, he's packing out the clubs in L.A. and Texas, man. This is going to be big." I went, "I don't get it." I was wrong. But, with Marty, I had not liked Marty's records at CBS, and he played me those things. I went, "God, this is really good. I like it."
Yeah.
And it worked. So I've always sort of trusted my instincts. If I really love something, you cannot steer me away. Patti Lovelace. Nobody liked Patti Lovelace at MCA. So her brother played me a song, her singing a cappella, "Sounds of Loneliness," in my office.
Yeah.
I signed her off for that one song.
Wow.
And to this day, she was never as big as Reba as far as selling tickets and stuff, or Shania or Faith Hill. But she's as respected as Loretta Lynn.
Yeah.
And Miranda Lambert respects her. Everybody respects Patti Lovelace. Her authenticity is what attracted me to her.
Yeah, she's real.
She's real, and she's from Kentucky. You can tell, because when I call your name on Vince Gill, he wanted to use Patti on the harmonies on When I Call Your Name. I said, "Can she sing harmony?" He said, "Tony, she's from Kentucky. Of course she can sing harmony. She's bluegrass." And her harmony made that chorus come to life,
George Strait.
6 weeks before the session was to happen, and the players had already been booked. Songs had pretty much been picked, except at the end, I played George 2 songs, Jim Lauderdale songs, "King of Broken Hearts," "Where the Sidewalk Ends," and George loved them. Jim Lauderdale's first cuts. I played them for the movie company. They said, "Oh, we've already passed on those songs." I said, "Well, George loves them," and so we cut them. And those songs played a big part of that movie.
Wow.
To this day, I cut 19 albums on George.
It's amazing. Working with George Strait it's got to be a dream.
Well, but it's different than, like, somebody says, "Who's the most fun person to record?" You don't say, "Well, they're all fun." They're not all fun. It's not, making records is hard work. It really is hard work, and I take it damn serious. Cutting George, you just find the songs that fit in his comfort zone, and boy, it sounds right.
Yeah.
And I got pitched the best songs on him. I mean,
Well, absolutely.
thousands of songs. But the most fun artist I've ever worked with is Reba. She's serious too, but she knows what she can do.
Yeah.
And she can do more than you think she can too.
Yeah, she's amazing. She actually has a place not too far from here.
Oh yeah, her and Rex.
And one morning I came out here to do something, and she was here in this bar.
Are you serious? Reba.
Hey, Keith, what's going on? Can you show me how to make biscuits?
I got to cut Fancy on Reba because my first album was Rumor Has It. She said, "You know the song Fancy?" I said, "Yeah." I said, I love that song. She said, "Me too. I want to cut it, but Bowen would never let me cut it. Would you cut it?" I said, "Absolutely." And it's only a top 10 song, but of all the records I've cut, and I've cut a lot, that's probably the most famous song I've ever cut. Fancy. That song belongs to Reba, not Bobby Gentry. It belongs to her. We copied Bobby's original version, but we made it. Ours was a lot more cinematic than Bobby's version.
That was a good record.
It was a fun record to cut too.
Lyle Lovett.
Lyle Lovett. Okay, he came to MCA through Curb. And Bowen said he had a little cassette tape, had 12 songs on it. And then Bowen said, take him around to all the producers like Stroud and Barry Beckett and all the producers in town at the time and see who wants to work with him. And all of them passed on and said, I don't get what you're doing. You know, he had a song called She's No Woman, She's My Wife. And I said, man, this is so good. Did you say it was on 16 track? He said, yeah. I said, I'll just remix it and I'll do it. He said, would you do that? I said, yeah, absolutely. I got the 16 track and we replaced a couple of acoustic guitar things where there were mess ups. But that first album were those demos. I didn't just mixed them. And then I was leaving some event and some A&R person said, who's going to play that? I said, somebody will. We had 3 top 10 singles in a gold album, the first album.
That's amazing.
And all of a sudden, I was, once again, I was thought of being a genius to sign someone like him. I just thought he was cool. The songs were great. He sang great. The arrangements were amazing. If you heard that album. And then the next album I did with him was called Pontiac. And the guy that co-produced the first album, Billy Williams, I got him to co-produce the second album with me. And I said, how'd you do that album? So we hired the same players, except we did hire Leland Sklar on bass and Harry Stinson on drums. But he said, I said, who's the horn section? He said, it's me playing all the parts. He said, I'll do it on this one too. And I thought, it'll take forever. He said, no, it won't. And he went out there and just did head arrangements on that second album. Large band, third album, more horn parts. We cut 3 gold albums with Lyle Lovett.
Oh my God.
And he's playing the Skimmer horn in April for 3 nights in a row. He'll sell it out. But the only big hits he ever had were on that first album. Cowboy Man, Farther Down the Line, God Will What I Want. I wasn't doing it to be a maverick.
No.
I was just doing it because I liked it.
Yeah.
And Bowen gave me permission. Go ahead. If you find some new stuff, and I'll produce the stars. He was doing the Oak Ridge Boys and Reba and everybody. He said, I'll do the stars, and you find some new stuff. Then when he left, I inherited Reba and George. Bowen told me before he left, said, you should never sign bands because tenors can't make it in country music. They don't like tenor singers. I said, I think they will.
Oh my God.
And then we had When I Call Your Name.
Oh, what a great record.
What a great record that was.
And Barry Beckett's on piano.
On piano, yeah.
Yeah.
Working with Vince is a lot of fun because he's so good, but boy, is he so indecisive. You know, it's hard for him to like anything he does. You have to make him go, no, that's good, Vince. You sure? Positive. I know he played me 40 songs at a pop at the house. He played me I Still Believe in You, and he just had a verse and chorus written. I said, we got to cut that tomorrow. He says, just got a verse and a chorus. I said, we'll sing the first verse twice, and then when we finish the track, write the second verse. That's what we did. Working with Vince, every artist is different.
Yeah.
And I just rolled with it, man.
And making the Alan Jackson records, he was so, in the early stages, he wanted to be there for everything, you know, and as his career got more demanding, then it was like, I don't need to be there for that, do I? It's like, it changes once the success button gets pushed.
Yeah, they don't ever want to be there for vocal comps.
Oh my God.
You know, I said George Strait one time after about 15 albums, I got down to had it mastered, and he's co-producer and artist, and he has to sign off on it before it could come out.
Yeah.
And he hadn't replied. And I said, did you approve the album? He says, God, Tony, I forgot about that. He said, I didn't even listen to it. The last one was so good, I figured this one sounds fine too. He said, I need you to sign off on it. So you approve it? Of course. But Reba's never changed. Vince has never changed. Mm-hmm. George too. George was pretty straight ahead all the way.
Yeah. And an amazing talent. Let's talk about why.
Oh my goodness. That was a hard one.
Yeah. But you did it.
Bowen had signed to Judd's, and then Naomi gets hepatitis, and so the album's going to be a Winona record. But when Bowen leaves, I inherit that.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh man, this should be fun, because I always thought that she had kind of chops like Bonnie Raitt, R&B.
Yeah.
If you listen to those Judd's records that Brent Mayer did, the only electric instrument on those records was the steel guitar and the bass.
Yeah, it's mainly Don
All
Potter.
acoustic. Don Potter on the acoustic one, everything.
Yeah.
So to use electric instruments on her, like synthesizers and electric guitar and stuff, and then her being by herself without her mom, we'd go to the studio and I'd be in there with all those players. I had like Willie Weeks, had double scale players.
Yeah.
She'd be out in the parking lot and in the car on the phone with her mom. I'd say, man, you need to come in. We just went through 3 hours and that's like 20 grand right there. She goes, don't worry, I'm on the phone to my mom. I'll be in just a minute. So the first record cost a lot of money, but it's of all the records I've made, it's one of my favorite records I ever made.
It was a great record.
It was a great record, but man, I put blood, sweat, and tears into that one.
It was good, though.
Sold 6 million records, so that's good.
I would say that's good. The Mavericks.
Well, I signed them because I went down to Miami and saw them, and they were packing out clubs. They pretty much did what they did, you know. They just played, and it took us about 3 albums. Don Cook is the one that cut the album that broke them.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. But we did 2 albums and nothing really happened. But they won actually vocal group of the year one year. But it was hard, you know, because those kind of, they would not want to play ball with the label.
Yeah.
You got to cut better songs. What's wrong with these songs? You know, just
I've been
like
down
this.
that road before.
We finally parted ways, but that was a blind faith thing that I just did, and it worked. But boy, it didn't work as great as some other things did.
You have got so many standout records. Is there one out of the many that sticks its head up?
If I've never been asked this question before, but if I had to pick like 5 records I've cut that stand out to me, Fancy, Believe by Brooks and Dunn. And you know, so weird, after all the records Brooks and Dunn cut, they never won single of the year for the CMA, for Neon Moon, or any of those records. They won single of the year for Believe. That's hard to believe. But although that's one of my favorite records, when Ronnie does that,
Yeah.
makes me cry every time.
Yeah.
How Do I Live with Trisha Yearwood for the movie Con Air. Vince, When I Call Your Name, of course. Maybe Copperhead Road for Steve Earle. That was a worldwide hit, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, most country records do not travel around the world. They just don't. People can't relate to cowboys like George Strait.
Are you still making records?
I'm still, you know, it's a young man's world. People are not beating my doors down, but I just did the 20th record on George, co-produced it with Chuck Ainley. I'm doing a 4 sides with Reba on her new album. I don't want to do anything that I don't love.
Yeah.
And there's not many new artists out there that really catch my ear. There's a new artist, Universal signed, that doesn't have a producer yet. I'm kind of like sniffing around, chasing it a little bit. She'd have to come and ask me because I would not force my way on her, because I could probably intimidate her and said, you need to use me or you'll fail. Her name is Belle France.
I know her. I've written with her.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
And she probably won't pick me, but she loves Reba, so I got a good shot.
Yeah.
I went and saw her the other night at a club, and
she's good.
She's really good. She's authentic, man. She's real Southern, loves real country music, and she's just real. Everything about her is real. Even has a real Southern accent.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest thing to Reba that's out right now is Lainey Wilson. Mm-hmm. She is who she is and not ashamed of it, you know. Most artists tend to think they got to compromise a little bit to be more mainstream.
Yeah.
Reba never did.
Well, the artists I've worked with that have been the most successful have been the ones that refuse to compromise on anything, and you just
I mean, your records on Zach Brown to me are some of the greatest country records ever made. I mean,
thank you.
You know, those records and the Judge records that Brent Mayer did, hold up for me. Owen Bradley's records on Patsy Cline hold up for me. There's not many records that hold up. But
I'm that way about Larry Butler's records. Those,
I
studied his production so much.
Well, those Kenny Rogers records are so good.
Oh God, you know, and a lot of that stuff was happening live. That's the amazing piece of that. That doesn't happen.
Those
much
were
anymore.
great records. Great records.
It's funny because I watched all this take place in your life and that whole Bowen regime. All of that stuff was just. What a great time in the music industry. You know, there was
The thing about those times we're talking about in the 80s and 90s, there were more characters than there are now, like the Bowen, Rick Blackburn.
Yeah, I love Bowen would start a rumor about himself.
I know.
He'd shoot through the town. Everybody going, "Did you hear?"
But Bowen, I was thinking of people that really made an impact on Nashville. Chet Atkins,
Yeah,
Owen Bradley,
Yeah.
Fred Foster,
yeah,
Jimmy Bowen, and Scott Borchetta right now.
yeah. I agree.
I mean, they've made an impact.
Only regret that I have is I didn't ever get a chance to talk to Billy Sherrill, the producer.
Me
Billy
either.
Sherrill. And he was, when
I
I
would
got,
have loved to have met him. One night at the BMI Awards when he got the icon thing.
yeah,
I was at George Strait's table and he was at the next table. And I said, "George, I've never met Billy Sherrill." He said, "Go meet him." So I walk over there and I sit down at the table and his wife says, "Honey, this is Tony Brown." She said, "He's not feeling good." And I was thinking, he looks like he's feeling really good. He was pretty much trashed. But I just wanted to touch it. I wanted to touch his sleeve, because I've copied his record so many times.
yeah, those records were amazing.
The modulation, the intros,
Yeah.
the intros were like hooks.
And boy, that's primarily why I ended up using Pig Robin so much, because he played all those Sherrill records, and it was,
And the thing about it is, we all learned the hook was the chorus.
yeah,
But with Billy Sherrill, it could be the intro, like
yeah.
behind closed doors, man. The hook is the intro.
I know, and there's a great story about that they spent all day tracking that thing, trying to get it right, and Pig just happened onto that
Oh, are you kidding me?
Oh,
See, I didn't know that story.
lick, and they went, "That's it, that's it."
Ah.
But that's the beauty of creativity, the way things just kind of unfold to you.
When I could play piano, I can't play piano anymore, but at a party, somebody would say, "Play something," and I would try. I don't play solos, so I would play something. They say, "Play an Elvis thing." I said, "What's an Elvis thing?" So then I'd play the intro to Behind Closed Doors, and the whole party would just swarm around the piano. I was going, "Boy, that's the best powerful intro right there."
Yeah, and I spent the afternoon with Pig one time, and just let him talk and tell me stories about his career and the influence of Dixieland music on what he did was huge.
Really?
He obviously played differently because he was blind, so he played behind the beat because he.
Never thought about that. You're right, he did.
And the pocket that between him and Roy Husky Jr., the pocket you couldn't mess with. It was just like, oh my God.
Have you worked with Gordon Oak?
Oh, Gordon's great too. Yeah.
Gordon's great.
Yeah, I used him on an Alan Jackson record, on the Drive record he played on, and
By the way, your Alan Jackson records are masterpieces.
Well, I wish I could take credit for the Sonics. That's really John Kelton who's made me look
John
good
Kelton.
for years.
It's kind of a secret, He is kind of a
He
secret.
likes being the secret. He's he's behind the scenes.
I've only
I'm
met him
happy
once.
that-
I used him to do an overdub with Trisha Yearwood on a Reba record one time. But I couldn't get anybody. I could get him, and I thought, oh, I get to meet John Kelton for once. I went to Berry Hill, and just I don't know what I was expecting, but he was such a low key guy.
Yeah, Tony, thank you. This has been a blast.
Hey, I feel like I'm still in the business.
You are. Let's get together. Let's find
do it,
something
man.
to produce together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you so much.
You too. You too.
Join us again next time on High Dollar Hill, where we tell the stories that made the music.